Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your warm reception. I have a feeling the way Johnny, my boy, John King, was moving at that sound that he wished he had recorded it. But you will get to sing an even better song in a few months' time, a song about something called victory. I'm going to begin by wishing you all a Merry Christmas. I know that for many reasons, when you sit alone and reflect on your personal circumstances, you would have to admit that it wasn't a very Merry Christmas at all. You know, I drove around Barbados, as I always do, and I don't even seem to see the number of lights up on houses that used to tell the world that the spirit of Christmas had come to Barbados. Thank you very much, Bishop Joe. And it is perhaps in those little things that we begin to see how our society has changed and how we have fallen from the place we used to be. We are here to do a 2017 review. And it is easy to do because 2017 was a horrible year. Queen Elizabeth is noted for saying, referring to one year sometime back, that it was an annus horribilis. This was an annus horribilis, and the dames are an annus horribilis. Anything more scandalous than that, I leave to Kerry Simmons. This has been a horrible year. It has been a year of disappointment. And when I speak, I'm not speaking about disappointment for just a set of people who support the Barbados Labour Party. It has been disappointment for every single Barbadian. It has been frustration for Barbadians, whether they were Bs or whether they were Ds, or no matter what their political stripes are. The promises that were broken to Bs, Ds, UPP, solutions. They were broken to Barbadians from every walk of life and every political persuasion. It has been a year in which the government of Barbados, the Democratic Labour Party, has spoken about blood running in the streets, and they have demonstrated nothing but contempt for the people of this country. But 2016 was no different. 2015 was no different. 2014 was no different. Every single year under the Democratic Labour Party has been a steady progression from bad to worse. And when you thought that the hole that we were in could be dug no deeper, the Democratic Labour Party put the shoulders into it and made that hole deeper. When you thought we could sink no lower, the Democratic Labour Party found a way to increase the burdens of Barbadians. So, when I ask you what has the DLP done for you in 2017, that is the answer, which is the same thing that they did for you in 2016, nothing. And in 2015, nothing. Parliament has now become a farce. And I remember when we walked out of Parliament going into the 2013 election, Comrade Raul Eastman had to go into Parliament on one occasion, and Don Villinis went public and said that the Barbados Labour Party come Parliament for food. Parliament now is nothing more than an exercise in DLP largesse when it comes to catering, because the business of the people is no longer done. Now, I'm very conscious of the time, and I know that Comrade Arthur had the music man trying to play him off the stage, and I'm not going to let that happen to me. So I'm going to try to stay focused for the next few minutes on just a few important elements. When the Democratic Labour Party came to power in 2008, in their manifesto, they had about 6 pages devoted to something called good governance. And we have no difficulty with that because we practice what we preach. We practice good governance and we preach good governance, but the Democratic Labour Party came to this country and spoke for the first time about good governance as if it was something new and novel. And one of the things that I recollect about good governance, perhaps more importantly, is that good governance is responsive. Good governance is about how you run your country, and good governance has to be responsive to the needs and the cries of Barbadians. And we, in these red shirts, as they say in Trinidad, we read and we ready. We read and we ready. We in these red shirts have been listening to the cries of the Barbadian people and formulating for ourselves what our likely responses would be when we win the government. The Democratic Labour Party has been ignoring the cries of Barbadians. Now, Barbadians don't all want big things. Some of them want some small things too. Some of them want roads fixed. Mara Thompson want roads fixed. Dennis Kelman want road fixed. But they're ignoring them as well. We want the garbage collected. Look up and down these streets and you will see the mountains of garbage and the rats running out of them 4 days after Christmas. And those are the small things. Barbadians also want some big things done. We want a society that is safe once more, that is secure once more. We want a vibrant economy. We want Barbados to be restored to the pride of place that it had 10 years ago, when Barbados was the #1 developing country in the world and the finest example of good governance in the region. We want water. Now, some of those things are big things, but the problem is that the DLP treats all of them in the same way. They ignore the cries of our people. The government don't do the little things, and the big things too heavy for them. But we've been reviewing not just 2017. I had to cast my mind back to 2008. And in 2008, the Democratic Labour Party brought a piece of legislation to Parliament. And it was a piece of legislation they wanted to spend a whole day on it, and the only thing this legislation did was to change the word druggist to pharmacist. That was what the Democratic Labour Party did. They brought a whole statute, repealed the one that was there before, and when you look at it, the only change was to change druggist to pharmacist. And therefore, we have not at all been surprised when we see exactly the same strategy permeating everything that they do in and out of Parliament for the last 10 years. This government has been passing legislation, and when they do pass legislation, they implement it poorly. So the Employment Rights Act, for example, passed. It's a good piece of legislation as far as it goes. It was intended to give individuals easier recourse when they got dismissed from their job. It was headed by no less a person than a famous QC in Barbados named Hal Gollop. That's not a judgment, that's just a statement of fact. But that instrument now sees Barbadians who have been dismissed waiting the same 2 and 3 years that they were waiting in the magistrate's court to get justice. And of course, you saw it with the workers from the NCC who had to wait almost 4 years to get a penny. Well, there are other pieces of legislation that they passed but don't bother to put into law at all. The Prevention of Corruption Bill, passed in 2010, took up day after day of parliamentary time. They passed it, but nothing else. So what we see on our side, especially in the last year, is a government that intends on rushing to Parliament with piece of legislation after piece of legislation and yet another piece of legislation, just so that they could say to the electorate when the election bell is rung, well, you know, we pass a law about this and we pass a law about that. It reminds me of a person who has a bank account in every single bank in Barbados, but not a red cent in any of them. Not a red cent in any of them, but he can boast that he got a bank account at First Caribbean, probably 4 branches, and Royal Bank and Republic Bank, not a red cent. So the Democratic Labour Party is going to be able to boast that they passed this law and they passed that law, but not a single one of them, will have any impact on the lives and fortunes of Barbadians simply because they only passed them for the record. And so Michael Ashley rushed to Parliament a few weeks ago and passed the misconceived Road Traffic Act. And just a few weeks later, the Minister of Agriculture rushed to Parliament and passed a Pre-Deal Larceny Act, where they define farming in such a bizarre way that anybody at all who planting 2-headed lettuce to sell before they go to church on Sunday now has to register. That's what it is. And if you don't register, you suffer grave penalties. Now, for goodness sake, that is what 2017 has given us. Do you not want 2018 to begin on a better note? And what is the way that 2018 will begin on a better note? Last Monday was the 18th of December. We were told that we were going to be debating amendments to the Police Act in all its stages the following day, the Tuesday. We didn't have a clue what it was. We thought that they were going to come and change. We didn't know what they were going to do. It might have been another druggist, a pharmacist scenario. But we intuitively demanded to see what bill they intended to bring. It wasn't on Parliament's website. We got sight of the bill during Mayor's Leader of the Opposition cocktail party. After 8:30 on Monday night, and Parliament is start at 10 the next morning, and when we saw it, the opening words terrified me. Because the opening words of this bill said that they wanted to increase the statutory powers granted to the Commissioner and the force with the use of cordons and curfews. Cordons and curfews. Now, I went later, I had to look at the meaning of cordons. Cordons, you know the term cordon off, which means you just put up a barricade. And a curfew, of course, means that you can't set foot outside your house a certain time. And, we thought that maybe we weren't seeing it correctly, maybe we'd had a few too much to drink, because we could not believe that a government could tell us and produce to us a bill for Parliament to be done the next day, which had as its purpose the introduction of cordons and curfews. I suspect that the only time in the last 100 years that we might have had curfews would have been in the time of the riots. Now, I won't lie to you. As a former Attorney General, I have been concerned about the level of criminal activity in our country, especially as it relates to gun crime. Boxing Day is no shooting day because a 23rd life was lost through gun violence on that day. I can only hope that we don't lose another one before the year comes to an end. And let me, on behalf of the Leader of the Opposition, offer yet another Barbadian family that's grieving our condolences as a political party. 23 lives lost to gun violence. And we have said that it is a serious matter. It is not a matter on which we want to score political points. It is going to affect our economy. If people are getting shot down like flies, then tourists will not come. If tourists don't come, the foreign reserves will. Well, I did say that just when you thought you could get no lower, the Dems is find a way to dig the hole deeper. So we recognize that there are difficulties. But to impose on Barbadians now, sudden so, and without any consultation, the introduction of powers to the police so that they, a police inspector, can decide to impose a curfew on you and you and you and the communities in this constituency and around. These are things that are unheard of in Barbadian history. But what is worse is that they sought to do it with indecent haste and without any consultation. You probably did not know that the government of Barbados well, I don't want to say you elected, but when I say you elected, you understand what I mean. A democratically elected government was going to Parliament to impose curfews on Barbadians. Can you imagine that? And you know, one of the most bizarre things is, I sometimes wonder what they're thinking, I have the statute here. In relation to cordons, which one would have assumed if they were going to cordon off an area, it was like Spring Garden, for example, July 18th this year, when you had the fellas running down there with guns and shooting people. August, yeah. Running and shooting people and so on. You could imagine that there would have been perhaps a need to cordon off, but the statute says that they can use cordons in order to investigate motor vehicle accidents. Now, if I didn't see it myself, I can believe it. I can believe it. But I don't know who drafted it, but I mean, this is what they're wanting to rush to Parliament and impose on the backs of Barbadians. Now, difficult times call for difficult measures and the government must lead, but the question is, how are you going to lead, Adriel Braffett and Frondell Stewart? Is this the way? Mia and I well recollect situations under our stewardships when we had flare-ups in New Orleans, when we had an increase, a remarkable increase in the level of burglaries in Barbados. But what did we do? We made sure the police had the resources that they need, and the police, without any direction from us, because the law says we can't direct no police. Okay, we provide the infrastructure and the environment, and then they do the job. The commissioner of police at the time, Darwin Dotting, could be seen walking through New Orleans on evenings. Not just as a show of strength, but as a show of confidence. And they were able to wrestle these flare-ups to the ground. But the Democratic Labour Party now waiting until we getting 4 murders through guns over a 2-week period and all kind of thing, and feel that the only response they can come up with is this response, when we have not even exhausted what remedies are already available. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit, but you remember that in 2007, the Dem said that the Barbados Labour Party didn't think that police were special. And David Thompson offered them duty-free cars and interest-free loans because he wanted the police vote, and he told them that they were special, so they can give the police duty-free cars and interest-free housing loans. Them ain't get one yet after 10 years. In fact, what they have gotten is a 10-year wage freeze, and the allowances that the Barbados Labour Party gave them taken away. I understand, I don't know if it is true, but I understand that on Boxing Day, 57 police officers handed in 6 certificates in the Bridgetown Division. In the Bridgetown Division, 57 police officers. Now, you mean to tell me that Adriel Braffett and Frondell Stewart cannot think and realize that they're dealing with a problem that increasing police powers will not solve? They meddle with promotions, they cut off the head of the police department, and what do we have today? Now, I said that the government should lead. And while there's a lot more that I can say, in the interest of the other 2 speakers, I just want to share with you a few statistics which might help you to realize what a perilous state we're in. Time after time at Parliament, I talk about the failure of law and order, and they talk about the judiciary and the court system in Barbados grinding to a halt. If Adriel Bravitt and Frondel Stewart do not know how they should lead us, they should call the election and step aside. If they cannot recognize that Barbados needs different stewardship, then they should call the election and step aside. I have a public report. It's the report of the Judicial Council of 2015, and it was issued by the Chief Justice, Sir Marston Gibson, on the 18th of April 2016. So it is not an old report. Not an old report at all. This report says that in the year 2015, Sherman Moore, Judge of the Court of Appeal, retired. Up to now, a replacement has not been appointed. With the elevation of Sandra Mason to the high office of Governor General, we will have yet another vacancy on the Court of Appeal bench. The Court of Appeal can't function with just 3 judges. Everybody knows that in Barbados, you have to wait years upon years to get decisions, but perhaps you do not know how truly bad the problem is. So let me share it with you. This is not Dale Marshall figures. These figures are given under the hand of the Chief Justice. It is laid in Parliament, and it's the report of the Judicial Council of 2015. And this tells us that in the... Yes, they're not me. It tells us that in the year 2012, 2,273 civil cases were filed in the High Court. 2,273. In 2013, the figure was 2,225. In 2014, it was 1,898. In 2015, it was 1,825. So in 2015, 1,825 new High Court cases were filed. Now, you know, these things are like corned beef on a shelf. You could stack up as much corned beef as you want, but unless somebody come and take it off the shelf and buy it, you ain't going away. So 1,825 cases filed in the High Court in 2015. And in 2015, according to Sir Marston Gibson, 36 decisions were given in the High Court. I hope you understand what I'm telling you. In 2015, 1,825 civil cases were filed in the High Court, but in the same year, only 36 decisions were given. 36. In the 4 years that he called off for you, 2012, 13, 14, and 15, a total of 8,221 cases were filed in the High Court. Civil cases. This is not divorces. This is not criminal matters. 8,221 filed in those 4 years. And in those 4 years, the High Court of Barbados gave a stunning, a whopping 180 decisions. 180 decisions. And I will not complicate the argument further, because the truth is those decisions might have related to cases that get filed in 2000. Okay? But the point I'm trying to make to you is that the Attorney General has work to do, but he's not doing it. He's not doing it. How can you expect to get a system functioning when 8,000 plus are coming in through the thick end and only 180 going out through the thin end? That is, you know, in medical terms, I think they would call that constipation. That's what that is. But But if Prime Minister can get up and curse the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice, about delays down there and so on, and want to know why they can criticize us, they can criticize us, Mr. Prime Minister and Mr. Attorney General, because in the last 10 years, you have sat down, done nothing, and allowed the judicial system in Barbados to come to a grinding halt. And then you wonder why we have so much chaos on the streets. You know, I used to love it when I get in trouble home a morning. I know if my mother either beat me then or she said, wait till father come home. By the time daddy come home, he's so tired. He's so tired and hungry. And he go and eat and sit down and watch listen to the radio. What likes what? What likes what? By the time my mother go and say, you know, Dave was very bad behaved this morning, just give the boy a break. Okay? But we have a system, behavioral topic. We have a system now which is almost equivalent to the situation where my father would, at the end of a long day, say, man, give the boy a break. Because punishment is not following in any meaningful way to the committing of the offense. There are people who are on remand for offenses that they committed 5 and 10 years ago. There are people who have committed offenses so long ago that some of the witnesses dead and gone. I spoke in Parliament about a case where a motor car was seized by the police. And the lady whose motor car was seized had to write her name on a piece of tape. And the case was done 10 years later, and when she got to Glendaria and they asked her to identify the car, it didn't have no wheels, it didn't have no windows, it didn't have no doors, it didn't have no bonnet. The only thing that she could recognize was the license plate, and one of them they fall off. But this is what is passing for good governance in our country. We need to come back to the days when a government takes the business of governing seriously. They are interested in giving Stephen Lashley a gold crown of merit. They're interested in families first. Frank De Silva, who lives in my constituency, but I swear to God, he can vote for me this election because he too vexed with them. He said that the Democratic Labour Party is a family party. Well, those days have to come to an end. We have invested too much in the young, the old, the middling, the tiny of this country to stand up as a government in waiting and watch the Democratic Labour Party drag us further and further down. Now, if you are satisfied with the way things are, just put your hand in the air. If you are not satisfied with how things are, put your hand in the air. And I know that this broadcast is being transmitted on the internet, and I have a feeling that there are a lot of Barbadians who, in the privacy of their homes, when there's nobody looking, who have their hands up in the air still. Now, there's a lot at stake going forward. We don't just have law and order issues at stake. The truth is that law and order and a well-governed society is one of the pillars that helps to make a country a success. That is where Barbados used to be before, but we have lost that position. I am not going to deal with the other things, the economic side of it. I leave that to other people. But for goodness sake, if you value your safety when you go home tonight, if you value a Barbados that you can feel proud of, if you value a Barbados where there's a sense of security, then you have to join with us and change this government. It isn't just about getting rid of Adriel Braffett, even though he should be the first to go. It's not just about getting rid of Frondell Stewart. He should be the sacrificial lamb. It is about changing an entire swath of people who are squatting in high office of this country under the name or rubric Democratic Labour Party, and the only thing that they're successful in doing thus far is down-pressing Barbadians. That stops in 2017. Onward to victory in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.